Before I call the meeting to order, we have one thing that we're going to do first. I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
All right. We have an extra special award to give tonight.
No, not yet. I will. It's not on here.
So, I've been asked to present to our district administrator a special award. So Jamie is completed his 25th year as a district administrator in the state of Wisconsin. And so he has a special award from the association that they're members of. So I have an award to give to Jamie. And Jamie, actually, this award is generally given at their meeting in April. And Jamie decided not to go to that meeting because he wanted to stay in the district and didn't want to give up a day in the district. So it shows kind of dedication he has. So Jamie, come on up. The Wisconsin Association of School Board District Administrators, 25 years of service. In recognition of 25 years of service as a district administrator, this certificate of merit is awarded to Jamie Benson. The Wisconsin Association of School District Administrators recognizes the importance of these years of service devoted to the cause of enriching the lives of boys and girls and improving the educational opportunities for all. With this award, the association offers its congratulations for service rendered and extends best wishes for continued fruitful endeavor in the cause of public education, dated the 26th day of April 2023. 10th year. Yeah. 10th year. Well, I'll tell you, I was on the board when we hired you, and we knew you were good, but we didn't know you were this good. So we appreciate all that you've done in 10 years, and
I've been very blessed to be surrounded by a lot of great people that have allowed me to carry on the work. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here for a decade.
Well, and just a minute, we are literally on borrowed time, but I do have a few things to say here. You knew I would. I want to just briefly say 4 things. I cut it down from 5. First of all, Jamie is a person of integrity. He plays out his relationships with colleagues, teachers and staff, families, and the school board. We know that Jamie values trust, honesty, and truth. The whole truth, not part of the truth. He expects this of others, and he exemplifies this absolute commitment to integrity himself. Jamie is passionate about education and doing what's best for students. While I suspect all educators value putting kids first, sometimes amid conflicting values, finite resources, and the limits of time and circumstance, it's not altogether clear what actually is the best decision for kids. To navigate these challenges, Jamie looks at issues from a variety of perspectives, seeks input from others, and carefully considers alternatives when figuring out the right thing to do for kids. Jamie is an extremely hard worker. He keeps long hours and is eager to be available at any point, including on vacation at the beach, to fulfill the responsibilities of leading the district. Jamie rarely, if ever, counts the cost to himself when making decisions and doing the work of the district. He is the epitome of a servant leader. Jamie is confident yet humble, and that is perhaps the highest compliment that I can give. He's willing to make the hard decisions that come with being a leader, but he is also quick to give credit to others and admits when he makes a mistake. He is also a master at finding compromise. So I invited Jamie's wife, Jan, to present the award tonight, but she is away taking care of her mother. But she shared with me what she thinks are 2 of Jamie's most important characteristics as a superintendent. And she said, integrity and passion. The very same things I had already put down on the list, so I'm going to take that as evidence that we are exactly right. So congratulations, Jamie. Thank you for spending your considerable talents here in the school district of River Falls. And they did send along a handy-dandy pin and the bulletin, so there you go.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Didn't know you were going to present that tonight. I am humbled and I appreciate it. Thank you. Again, it's been a great privilege for me to be a part of this district, and truly, I know it sounds like things you're supposed to say, but and throughout my career, I've been supported immensely by a very forgiving wife, that's for sure. But also just some really great people that have lifted me up and carried me through these 25 years. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
So we have a few little celebratory treats here that are coming. All right, once everybody has their treats, then I am calling this meeting to order. And you'll want a napkin, so. We ha-
I realize how much I don't like surprises.
this was, I don't either. This is a little.
Thank you.
I'm going to hold off, but give Jamie two.
All right, look at that big hunk. Look at this.
So, didn't know for sure how many people would be here, so you're all going to need to have two, in case you were wondering. All right. And with that, I do call the May regular meeting of the River Falls Board of Education to order. This meeting has been properly notified, and we will begin with the pledge right after I give you a treat to eat. I think we should wait. We'll do the pledge afterwards, so finish your treats. All right, first of all, do we have any visitors or delegations who would like to address the board this evening? Please come. If you tell us your name, and please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Thank you.
I'm short. Does this work?
It works very
Okay.
well.
So I'm Tanya Schmidt, and I'm a parent in the district. And I wanted to share some things that I see that are great in this district. So I am also on the planning committee for EarthFest, and the school district had a wonderful presence at EarthFest. I love that you were especially focused on the school forest and the environmental education that comes with it across the grades. I love what's up and coming with the trail development and all of the things involving the whole community across the ages. And prairie restoration, these things are great now and for generations to come. Thank you. And I also wanted to say that I have a graduating senior this year who has been very active in the GSA, the Gay Straight Alliance, and this has been really powerful for her to develop her leadership skills, always been very academically minded, and ultimately being involved in GSA has been a part of helping our daughter to be accepted to St. Catherine University and to get a presidential scholarship. So all kinds of great things happening here. Thank you very much.
Congratulations to your daughter.
Well, I think you all know my name, except Miss Page, probably. Jackie Nickham, River Falls, Wisconsin. And I hate to be kind of a little bit of a downer after all of the kudos here, but my guess is that many people were disappointed in the school board decision on the Poet X book. You ended up using procedures so that no one really had to be on the record as to make a decision of whether it was appropriate or not. And perhaps you should do some reflection on why, sorry about that. The reputation of this school, unfortunately, and you may not be aware of that, but has gone down in probably since 2015. I don't know why, but it has. The Hudson School, that reputation is not as good as it used to be also. And perhaps you should do some reflection on why that's happening, because you're losing good teachers, you're losing good students too. But I do want to give a shout out to the Pierce County Journal, because they accurately reported the last meeting where we did have a big discussion about Poet X. I will say it was too bad that they used the word ban, because ban was never our intention. We just didn't want that book read by the 9th grade students. That was our intention. We certainly would allow parents and children to read that book on their own time, but we just did not want it in the classroom. Thank you.
Are there any other visitors or delegations who would like to address the board?
Hi, I'm Joe Mischke, River Falls. I wanted to say how grateful I am for the FFA and the program there. Our son has really gotten involved with it. I don't know, I'm getting so choked up. But he's really finding his own. He's a great student otherwise, but he's developing other skills and leadership and really taking a great part of that. And I also wanted to thank you for the curriculum and helping the inclusion of all students. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to address the board this evening? All right, we're going a little bit different from normal, but now we will begin with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mike, you're up again.
One of the distinct honors of the school board is the ability to give out certificates, what we call Wildcat Pride Awards. And we give these to students or faculty or folks in the community that kind of separate themselves from other people in the district or in the school. So we are very honored tonight to honor Reese Visger. I think Reese is here, and Sierra Robertson, who I think is not here. So could I get Reese to come up here, please? Start with a little bio. How old are you? And what grade are you in? And what school do you go to? Greenwood. Good school, right there. So, all right. So, Reese, the Board of Education would like to commend you for demonstrating perseverance and a positive attitude as a learner. As a leader in the school, you assumed the role of mentor for a younger student. You go out of your way to ensure he feels connected, valued, and appreciated while modeling positive character traits. Your presence has a profound positive impact on those around you, and you set an example for others on how to put character into action. Reese, you are a true ambassador of Wildcat Pride. Congratulations.
Well, I would just say that Reese is the kind of student that you would want to be a mentor to your younger students if you had the opportunity for it, and she really does go out of her way helping the student feel welcome and comfortable. She's making a huge difference, and something that we talk about often at Greenwood and all of our schools with our character education program is looking beyond yourself to find ways to help others, and she's really taken that to another level, so congratulations.
Good work, kiddo. You want to give this to Sierra?
I would, except she doesn't come to me.
Oh, that will go to Chris Silver. Ren, yeah.
If you can run it over to the Ren,
All right, we are now going to move on to our spotlight. We have Rocky Branch today.
I'm glad you all have snacks for the presentation, too. That worked out really well. I'm Ashley Bingenheimer. I'm the principal at Rocky Branch Elementary, and our spotlight this month is on how we've been working on cultivating a culture of professional learning and teacher efficacy at Rocky Branch. So a little bit of background. Collective teacher efficacy is the level of confidence that teachers have in their ability to guide students to success. And according to John Hattie's research, it has an effect size of 1.57, which is actually the highest impact of all 250 influences measured in his research. So a goal I had for this year was to increase our teacher efficacy by cultivating a culture of professional learning where teachers feel valued and learn from each other. So to do that, two main action steps. One was to increase the professional development offered related to core instruction. And then the second piece that I've talked about a few times, just briefly, has been implementing a peer observation model. So I'll just kind of walk through what that looked like this year as well. So for professional development, our focus, I worked really closely with our literacy coach mainly, but we wanted to have PD related to core content and instructional practices for teachers. So a few years ago, we went away with our point system, which is how teachers kind of traditionally would choose what kind of PD they wanted. They would earn points, and now that model is gone, so we had to get creative in how we found time to offer that for teachers and make it intentional. So one was called Potty PD, which I'll get to in a second on another slide. I'll just keep you in suspense on that one. And then another big piece of our professional development was our instructional coaches. So that was job embedded, just in time professional development. Teachers can work individually with a coach, or their entire team could work on goals with an instructional coach. So some that were related to core content were our second grade team, as a whole team, worked with our literacy coach on a writing skills focus. So they saw in their writing data that some kids were struggling with certain errors and issues in their writing, and they wanted to find better instructional strategies to address those gaps and then analyze data throughout the year. A fourth grade teacher worked independently with a coach to implement Literacy Studio, which is a research-based literacy strategy. So they co-planned and co-facilitated that so that eventually the fourth grade teacher can facilitate that on her own without the coach. And then our math coach worked on professional development for our K2 and 3-5 teachers around instructional strategies for independent problem-solving tasks in math. Our BLT, which is our leadership team, did a book study on learning by doing this year, and our goal was to use that to kind of beef up our PLC leadership with our teams. So we focused on strategies for our leadership team for assessing student learning and then helping them guide conversations around core instruction with their team, which can be kind of an intimidating thing to do. So that was the goal of our book study. And then here's what our Potty PD looked like, and it has a really cute catchphrase on the top that says, "Because every moment is a learning opportunity." So our coaches put this together, and it was in our staff bathrooms, and every month it changed. But it had just really quick, research-based instructional strategies that you could read in under a minute in these 4 areas. So there was always a math focus, writing, foundational literacy skills, and reading. And it was actually amazing how many teachers would reach out based on something they saw in here to follow up with a coach and do more with it too. So kind of a fun way to get teachers interested in new strategies. And then our last, this actually ended up getting canceled this year, so we're going to use it next year for some literacy professional development, but this was more formal. So the plan had been that on 2 in-service days, they would get to choose which of these topics they wanted to study. They'd work with a little cohort. So the first in-service day would be learning instructional strategies as a group around either phonemic awareness, phonics, or word study. And then the next in-service day, after implementing it, they'd come back and talk about what they learned, what worked, and what they plan to continue doing in their classroom. And then the second objective I talked about was to implement peer observation. So the goal was to have a 30-minute block of coverage. 20 minutes of that would be time for the teacher to go observe, and then have 10 minutes of time to reflect on what they observed and just take a little much-needed break. So their steps as a teacher, if you wanted to observe another teacher, was to first determine who you wanted to observe or what you were looking to see, and then sign up for time and classroom coverage. And then on the day of the observation, in their mailbox, there was a little staff shout-out form I'll show you, a reflection guide, and a hot cocoa pod for when they were doing their reflecting. So tried to make it kind of fun. This was the sign-up document. We tried to keep it really simple. So if I were a teacher wanting to observe, the days of the week that we offered coverage were on a Google Doc. They would just sign up for the time, and under either me, Rachel, or Connie, our coaches, and then we would just make sure it was on our calendar, and we'd cover their class. So they could either leave us like sub-plans for that time, or we'd bring our own activity to do with their classroom. We had one teacher go to Greenwood and observe, which was really cool, and I think one of our goals next year is to just encourage and show them how that can work in their classroom too, to get out of our building. And then some teachers, this is our actual document, I just took out names. Some teachers knew what they wanted to see, but didn't have someone to connect with yet, so they could list their name and what they were looking for, and then we would pair them up with someone. So that was really a nice, easy way for them to get involved as well. So we surveyed staff, and one of the questions was, how easy was it to sign up for peer observation? 5 being very easy, 0 being difficult. So at least this part was easy for teachers, it looked like. And you can see there were 9 responses. So we had 9 teachers over the course of the year who went out and did observations, which is just under half of our staff. So pretty good for our first year doing this. The other thing they got in their mailbox was this form, and it had two sides. One was classroom management, and the other one was instructional strategies. This was just for teachers to use as an option. So this was not handed in to me. It was not handed into a coach. But if you were a first-year teacher and going to observe a classroom, sometimes you don't even know what you're looking for. So this was just meant to help guide teachers to kind of be thinking about what they might want to observe in a classroom. So maybe you're looking for how supplies are managed or how teachers handle transitions. So they could take notes if they wanted to. And then what I liked was on the bottom, it just said, what's one thing that you want to take and use in your classroom? So in that 15, 20 minutes, what's one thing that you might take away and use? And then same for instructional strategies. How did the teacher differentiate? How did they use technology? What was the lesson structured like? Things like that. And then lastly, this was the staff shout out. So again, that teacher efficacy piece, wanting the person who got observed to feel good about this interaction as well. We made sure that every time they got a little shout out of something positive, and we read it at staff meetings to share what we were seeing in observations. So then the next few slides are just more feedback from teachers. How valuable did you find your peer observations to be this year? Again, 5 is very valuable, 0 is not valuable at all. What level of impact did the observation have on your classroom, management, instruction, or content knowledge? 5 being high impact, 0 being no impact. And then would you continue to participate next year if given the opportunity? And 100% of people said yes, so that was good. I also asked people who didn't participate to complete the survey. So they indicated barriers, and I highlighted common themes. Most of them were scheduling, timing, logistics, student teacher, or just intending to, but never following through and setting it up. So those are things we can work with. And then for everybody, questions or feedback they had, and I won't read this to you, but I'll give you a second. I tried to kind of highlight common themes as well, but I'll just let you read through some pieces. So one thing I was just really impressed with, and this is all of the responses, I did not just pick and choose. So even the people that didn't participate, I was expecting a few little like jabs about the process, but really overall it was really positive, and it seems like a lot of people maybe just weren't quite ready to jump in this year, or there were other things that were causing a barrier, but overwhelmingly people were hoping it would come back. So that was really motivating for us as well. So just kind of what's next, the two questions that I'm reflecting on at this point in the year are based on my goal. Did peer observation impact teacher efficacy at our building? And the things that I've noticed so far is that the connectedness of our staff seems improved. So teachers are more vulnerable. They're more willing to discuss instructional practices and data. There's also an increased collective understanding of what our instructional priorities are. So what does high quality instruction look like at Rocky Branch and in the district? And what are our expectations as a team of teachers working together? The other piece of reflection is core instruction. So did this practice coupled with our professional development impact our core instruction? And my notes are, we've seen an increased use of research-based methods, especially in the area of writing. So that's kind of a piece of our literacy block that sometimes is hard to always fit in consistently or gets tossed to the side when you have a different schedule day. So being really intentional about writing. The potty PD strategy implementation, that was just a really engaging way for teachers to try some new strategies. We also had some success with looking at our data. So Haggerty was a supplemental resource that works on phonemic awareness. And based on our fall data for K and 1, it was, instead of using it as a targeted intervention, they ended up using that as part of their core literacy programming. So that was a change this year. And then just a general increase in discussion, creation, and analysis of formative assessments. So all positive results. And then, so our plan for next year, we're gonna continue the peer observation. I'm hoping we only have 3 new teachers, but that I'm gonna encourage that each trimester they try to go observe somebody, so 3 times a year. And then just trying to really target those PD opportunities that are job embedded and meaningful and give teachers some choice in what they want to learn more about. Questions?
Yeah, Ashley, this is This is really interesting, seeing what you're doing here. Just a question. First off, I'd like to say I really am glad to hear your emphasis and support of professional development for your staff. That's so important. And the world is moving so fast right now, and there's so many new developments and all that, keeping teachers current on just what's out there, what has to be taught, and how you're going to teach it with the technology and all these kinds of things. So I think that's good. The staff observations strike me as really interesting, because at first blush, I would think that maybe that seems a little intimidating for people, you know, like if I might want to observe Mike's class, but Mike might not want me to observe him, you know. I wouldn't want him observing mine. How do you knock down those barriers of intimidation that this is really constructive kind of thing? I'm going to come in and watch you rather than I want to come in and watch you.
Yeah, well, so part of that, I'll kind of go backwards. The staff shout out piece was really meant to just, there was never criticism given. So we focused on building up the person you observe. And then the first time we rolled it out was at a staff meeting, and I gave time at that meeting to kind of mingle and try to find someone at that point that you maybe have a friendship with that you want to observe before we got into sort of the like, I'm looking for math, and then trying to pair people up. So if the coaches or I ever suggested someone to observe, we made sure we first had talked to that person, or it was somebody who was open to observation. And then they were also kind of flattered that we suggested them also, so I think that helped a little bit. But we kept it very, they never saw those observation sheets. There was no criticism. It was really just meant to build them up.
It seemed to me that you need to cultivate a professional atmosphere of trust in your staff, and that would be important. I like this notion of between the buildings, too. And we talked often, and I think I mentioned often that I like to hear us moving back and forth laterally and vertically in terms of how we share curriculum and all those kinds of things, so people know what's going on, so that it makes our buildings less building-centric and all of that. So the more you could do that, that sounds cool to me. So anyway, if it's working, more power to you, and I hope that this catches on, because I think it sounds very interesting from my standpoint.
Thanks.
Did you see any pattern in the 9 teachers that took advantage of it? Age, experience, anything?
That was, I should have included that. That was one of our questions for both those that did participate and those that didn't. How many years have you been teaching? And that, I think it was like there was an 11 years plus category, so more of our veteran teachers did not participate, but they're also the ones who were more likely to have student teachers and some of those other conflicts that made it harder to sort of be out of your classroom. So it was a pretty even spread otherwise of those that did participate. So I think the teachers, there's some that are just like more eager and collaborative by nature, so they tended to do multiple observations, but there were some that went out of their comfort zone for sure and at least tried to get one in this year. So yeah, it's great.
Was 20 minutes, you said they observed for 20 minutes. Do you think that was long enough to really impact their classroom?
Yes, and they could do it longer, so we always said, these are 30-minute blocks, but when you went to Greenwood or went somewhere else, they could extend it. But even for me, when I go into a classroom for 20 minutes, and if you have those specific things you're looking for, you can, sometimes longer feels, you start to zone out or miss things, but 20 minutes is very intentional to kind of get the things you're looking for. But they could do longer if they were wanting to see a lesson from start to finish, they could do that too. And some people just did it on their prep, so some didn't use us for coverage, but they would, if they were going to observe a different grade level, could use their prep time and do that for a longer stretch too.
Be interesting when we get this going inter-building, inter-level. So, you know, I could see a situation where you had 5th grade teachers wanting to observe 6th grade teachers in the middle school and vice versa, so they can figure out, help with the transition, or 9th grade, 8th and 9th grade teachers moving back and forth just a little bit too.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, the next thing is we have reports, a series of reports. Our student is ill today, so we're going to go right to our superintendent's report.
Wanted to just give a kind of a quick overview of some of the academic success of our students. We gave a presentation to the board in January, and so you'll have to excuse the format here. It's not as dressed up from a common kind of branding where I've had help in the past, but truth be told, kind of cut and pasted from a couple of different sources here. And so I'm going to go quickly, but feel free to interject or ask questions along the way if you have any.
I think she turned it off.
So much of what we're measuring here and the information that we're sharing has to do with a DPI report card. And they measure on the bottom of this screen, you can see achievement, growth, target groups, and on track for graduation. Complicated formula involved in lots of complex ways for how they measure each of those 4 areas, and I'm not going to get into the weeds on that tonight. The report cards are done on this rating scale, and our district exceeds expectations. A breakdown here, I just pulled out a few individual scores. So here you can see 4th grade math. And this measure is depending on how well students do, they're considered the lowest level would be that you have minimal proficiency. And then there's basic, and then there's proficient and advanced. So the goal would be to be proficient or advanced, and therefore what the numbers are that you see here are an indication of the number of students in those top 2 tier, proficient and advanced, compared the blue line to our district with the red line being the state. And so it's good, obviously, to see some separation. We don't want to be at the state's average. We always want to be better than that. Here, a snapshot in 8th grade. Mark, along with his staff, has done some very intentional work where you can see the progress that's made. We're looking beyond this year to continue that path, but they've recognized the need for us to ramp up our math achievement scores. And again, you're just seeing 8th grade here, but this is work that goes on throughout the middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade by department. Obviously, all kids that come to the middle school came from one of 4 different elementaries, and so there's some complexity as well that goes on behind the scenes with all of the work that we do with curriculum and instructional practices. Here I circled that this is kind of a breakdown that shows the growth. One of those 4 areas that I mentioned is growth. So that's a measure from one year to the next, how much have students improved, and you want to see that continual growth advancing from one grade level to the next. And so that's what drove those numbers at the middle school with 8th grade math. This is loaded with info. It basically has 3 different benchmarks. One is the ACT average, that's the high school ACT. The other is our 3rd grade. ELA is English Language Arts. And then 8th grade math. And so the different years, I said this is loaded with info, so it's got different years starting in 2018-19 on the left. You can see the dark blue is our district, and next to that is the state average. So using that example, that's our ACT scores. Moving from one year to the next, comparing local and state average. So as you can see there, every year we're achieving higher than the state average with our ACT scores. In the middle there, 3rd grade, same deal. Just shows the blue, dark blue is district, light blue is state, and shows the different years. So the gray is the new set of years. What is that? 2021 compared to 2021 to the state. And then the last on the far right, those are the 8th grade math scores. So these are, I refer to them as, these are 3 benchmarks. So how are you doing with your ACT scores? How are you doing in 3rd grade reading? To me, that's a significant measure because we begin teaching our kiddos how to read at a very early age, and the goal would be to have them, every student, frankly, by 3rd grade to be at grade level. And then, of course, a math benchmark as well. Here I just pulled out.
Well, can we ask questions as you go? Or
Yeah, you bet.
I'm just wondering, we must look at how many kids take the ACT? What percentage of kids take the ACT, students here compared to other districts?
Yeah, so now it's required that
Oh,
every,
it is.
every,
They all take it?
Yep.
Okay, great.
statewide.
So it really is apples to apples.
Yep. And there I just pulled out again ACT, 3 different years running along with 8th grade math. Significant improvement in that eighth grade math score, as you can see. Here, just wanted to make some comparisons in these next 3 slides. So these are districts from around the entire state of Wisconsin. And this is an achievement score. So this is different than growth. This is kind of the snapshot in time, how the students did with their achievement. And we grabbed 20 districts of similar size, meaning by enrollment size from around the state. Here we have 39 districts in our region of the state. The CISA region has 39 districts.
It's interesting that the ones that are ahead of us are all by Milwaukee. Suburbs of Milwaukee.
This would be affluent suburbs of Milwaukee.
This is the BRC, is the Big Rivers Conference, so schools that are in our, basically our athletic conference. And then, you know, we always want to be reminded of some other things besides those core academics of reading and language arts and math, that where we're at in comparison to other districts around the state with art and music and theater. You can see these are participation levels. This is another measure that's not a core subject area, but it measures in comparison to participation levels with other districts statewide. And so there you can see with our advanced courses and dual enrollment, industry recognized credentials, and work-based learning.
What is dual enrollment?
Take a class at our high school and you'll get credit towards your diploma while at the same time earning a credit towards a tech school or university. Dual. So target groups, this is where specifically targeting, I mentioned there's these 4 areas of measurement. And one of them is target groups. So targeting specific groups of students where, due to their previous performance, were identified in need of being targeted for improvement. And so, again, when the DPI puts lots of data into the blender, our results district-wide are that our targeted group scores, we're either the same or higher than 68% of the school districts in the state. Growth, another measure, comparing year-to-year progress on those statewide tests, same or higher than 65% of the districts in the state. This shows the ELA growth, again, English Language Arts. Achievement level, same or higher than 84% of the districts in the state. And that's a multi-year average. Again, put things into the blender. This is, the state takes multiple years of your English language arts and math scores. And we're doing well. We're doing better, same or higher than 84% of the districts in the state. So what else do we know? There's a lot of high-quality experiences and opportunities provided for our students that are unmeasured. Gentleman spoke this evening about his appreciation for our FFA program. There's no measure on the state report card for that. There's no measure for a whole lot of things that we provide for opportunities to our kids in this district, leadership and character development that were mentioned earlier as well. They're not measured on a report card. We've got amazing kids and families and large spread community support. Our faculty and staff, and certainly a very effective school board. These are things we know, and these are things that aren't measured on that report card. So kind of what next? What steps do we look forward to? To be clear, I purposefully put a lot of what I would consider to be good news stories into the presentation here tonight. Admittedly, I pointed out some things with math where we need to ramp up our scores and we need to do better. We're working very purposefully and intentional at some of those areas. I think it's important that we do that in a very coherent and deliberate fashion, and we're going to continue to do that. We have a strategic plan that calls for these items that are on the screen here that feed into the academic success of our students. And so those readiness benchmarks, those are the things that I mentioned on the one slide. So where are you at with third grade reading? Where are you at with ACT scores? Where are you at with eighth grade math? establishing benchmarks specific to measure and to look at. We can do that at every grade level, but along the way, we want to have some of those key benchmarks as well that we build our work into and around. Now, obviously, we need to have the right kind of support and resources. The other thing that I didn't put up here, frankly, in full transparency, was some areas where we need to get better, and there's some subgroup of students. So when we can break apart data for special education, English language learners, students, low social economic conditions, and some of those areas where our students here, we got to keep moving the needle and keep improving some of those targeted groups. And we will do that, and again, in a purposeful and deliberate manner. I mentioned meaningful 4K and K programming. We got to get our littles off to the best start possible in our school system. In our ongoing work with curriculum alignment and grade level sequence, Alan mentioned vertically and horizontal communication with the curriculum. We had a presentation at the board here a month ago. I guess it was at Ed Program regarding some of the work we're doing with our curriculum mapping and having a continuous cycle. We need to get better at that. We haven't had a continuous plan in place for that, and we now have a plan built, and so the work will begin in a more continuous manner there. So again, I tried to point out some really good news stories in the slides that I selected, but admittedly, there's room for us to grow and keep getting better along the way. So, thank you.
A couple thoughts as I look at this data again, and we've seen it. One is that as a district, we've always assumed we're above average, and I think we want to be above average. One of the challenges for us is that what are the measures that we get? As Jamie mentioned, there's a whole bunch of things that the state doesn't measure, but there are a few that we can. But this is aggregated data, and there are spreadsheets upon spreadsheets of this test data. I'm looking at some of our building leaders who deal with these spreadsheets that this is all of the fourth graders, for example, in one area, but we can really pinpoint where the growth is and where the growth isn't, and I know our building administrators spend a lot of time kind of going through this, so it's not that we're sitting back thinking, oh, we're above average on all of this stuff. We've heard and we hear at board meetings and committee meetings ongoing throughout the year the very specific work that our buildings are doing and our teachers and staff and building administrators are doing to address each of those deficiencies. Because just because all of the fourth grade are here, we know that there are pockets where some students are getting it and some aren't. So if our test scores are above average, that means there are some above and some below, and we've got to have strategies that get those students up. And there are all kinds of things that relate to it, some of which are within our control and some of which aren't. You know, for example, one of the things that I've often known is that if you take away, consider all things, not just academic factors, when it comes to ACT, the number one predictor is family income. Okay, if you're just looking at academic considerations on what predicts ACT score, there are all kinds of things you can pinpoint and all of that. But the number one predictor overall is family income. Kids who come from families who are more advantaged and give their kids more typically score much better on things like the ACT than others. So we know that not all kids are advantaged in this district, and a lot of kids come from low-income families and all of that, and we've got to keep that in mind and identify that. So we're well aware that this is aggregated data, but the spreadsheets are huge, and it's all public information, right? So, I mean, if any parent wants to know, I don't think my fourth grader is where they should be, where do they relate to others, they can talk to their building principal or teacher, and that data should be out there in those spreadsheets about where the students are and aligning and that sort of thing. So. Anyway.
A lot of this data, the thing that this kind of data allows us to do is to frankly compare to our neighbors and look at other districts around the state. It should be noted that these are assessments, tests that are basically a snapshot in time. During this week, we're administering these state exams. During this day, students are taking the ACT. So it's a snapshot in time. And to your point, there's other more formative kind of assessments that our teachers are deliberately doing maybe not on a daily basis, but certainly weekly and monthly basis, that is more intentional and purposeful. Ashley talked about some of this, where sharing and collaborating and working with each other as a staff and breaking down test data, real-time data, not a snapshot in time, is what really moves the needle, so that when students sit down to take that test on that given day, it raises their achievement. But it's not that day that the results is really happening. The results happens day to day with what our teachers are doing in classrooms, and they're doing a lot of the formative kind of assessments, modifying their instruction to meet the needs of students that aren't at the grade level, aren't at where they need to be. That's a tall task. You get 25 kiddos sitting in front of you every day, and to think you're gonna individualize with all 25 all day long is a heavy, heavy lift. And we serve all kids here. We are here to the benefit of kids that come from different backgrounds and experiences and so on, and we're blessed to have high-quality staff. And, you know, I think most would agree that, sorry.
Let me go back.
Most would agree that the place we want to be is to the left. The place we want to be is to the left. You know, and so,
Mostly we want to be Hudson.
yeah. But this notion that we've heard from a small number of people suggesting that our district is in a dismal state of affairs and is failing miserably, and that we've lost sight of academics, and we're spending too much time on some other things that are not as important as teaching our kids how to read, write, and do math. I'm gonna suggest otherwise. I'll leave it at that. And I think the data can speak for itself, and I'm hoping that people don't have the mindset, don't confuse me with the facts because I've already formed my opinion. Do we have more work to do? Absolutely. You bet. Are we doing good things here in the district? Some that are measured on a test and others that are not? Absolutely.
So Jamie, this data looks at the last 5 years, 5 school years of data.
Well, there's an individual test score on, established, and this is where I referenced the blender, that the DPI, and I'm not getting into the weeds on that, with how they,
It's multi-year, right?
some scores are more of an independent score on how much growth was achieved by students over a period of time, and some is done on achievement level on today's test. How did they do?
I'm just curious, and again, I haven't been tracking this, but this goes back to 2018. If I went back to 2010, what would the scores look like compared to the look up now? As Ms. Nickam points out, are all the schools in the area kind of in decline? Is our performance, has it gone down in the last 10 years, the last 15 years? Or is this a reasonable, have we been humming along at about this level?
There's been 3 different tests issued by the state. So 10 years ago, it was the WKCE.
Okay, it wasn't the same test.
Then there was the Badger exam for a bit, and then there was the forward exam. So it would be hard to go back 10 years and have an apples-to-apples comparison, because they were different tests with different cut scores based on different federal laws. So it's caution before you go that, to the point that we brought up earlier, the ACT wasn't required. So when we went from the ACT not being required, or to being required, obviously our ACT scores were impacted by 70% of the kids taking it who were focused on going to a 4-year college, to 100% where maybe that wasn't their career plan. You're gonna see an impact in the ACT score. So just be cautious of going back 10 years when it would be 2 tests ago and different cut scores.
So the only thing we can really look at how we compare to others. We can look at how we
That's-
compare to others. And we
we can do
are
that,
comparing well to others. We're holding our own here.
Yeah, I think the world is curious. We're all curious to know how we compare to others, and I was trying to suggest too that there's these snapshots in time. There's other work that our teachers do to also measure where students are at on a more weekly, monthly kind of basis, and have to recalibrate their instruction and individualize to the extent they can with 25 kids in front of them every day, and that's a tall task, but that feeds into providing them with the right support and the right resources, and whether that's new curriculum, new textbooks, or whether that's having aides and assistants and paraprofessionals to support the needs of those that have very unique and special individual needs, they're all blended into the results on these scores. And so there's a value and a curiosity, I think, that we all have in knowing how we compare to our neighbors, and I think we fare well. And, you know, for us to continue to just sit on our laurels and be happy with that, that's not the answer either. We're always in a mode of continuous improvement and want to keep moving the needle, keep making our kids smarter every day.
You know, one of the things these measures and these tests have is we all want to be accountable. I think parents want us to be accountable. We as a board want to be accountable for what our teachers learn. I think teachers are more than willing to be held accountable. The challenge is, what are the measures? And Dave mentioned it, you know, in the last 10 years, the state kept changing the test. The WKCEs nobody liked, so they launched this new test, which was, I don't remember the name, but the Badger exams, which then people didn't like. So now we've got a new set of exams we've been using for a few years. Are they correct? Are they measuring exactly what we all think? Without some kind of quantitative measures like this, the evaluations become subjective and anecdotal, especially anecdotal. Well, my kid is, the kids I hear from, whatever. So there's some consistent stuff, and I think, as has been mentioned several times here, it's how are we doing in relation to other districts around us, but there's so much more that our kids are doing than the very specific things that these test scores are measuring. We need to be aware of that and conscious of that too, so.
Why is there such a misperception? There's such a difference in reality for some of these people out here that think that we're failing or that we're declining, and the numbers just don't prove that out. I don't understand where there's this disconnect.
I don't know that for sure. My observations are that I see a lot of that going on the national scene. I see it and read it and hear it from our politicians. If I say it, it must be true. Even though there's no specific data to support my theory or my claim. And so, you know, I mentioned that we gave a more comprehensive report on this in January, and quite frankly, the reason we brought it back again 4 months later is because that we kept hearing some allegations that I don't think are founded on data and have the merit that they sometimes
Claim.
More work to be done, for sure. Not trying to sell everybody a unicorn, a rainbow, and a set of all is well here in River City. We've got some things we got to get better at every day, for sure, but we got some really good people in front of our kids that are doing good work. We've got good families, good kids that are achieving quite well, and I think the data points that out both in January and again here tonight.
I have a question maybe our principals can help me think about. So as you look at the achievement and the growth here, our teachers and our students are doing really well. Do we talk to, and also I have kids that come home, right, and talk about, we have testing today. And so I'm wondering if we talk to our students about the growth that we actually have collectively in our district and in our schools. And I think about, Ashley, your point about, right, staff efficacy and the opportunity to create some school efficacy, right, with the students, that collective efficacy, and with our growth, right, with our achievement. Do we talk to them about that, or do we just, they take the test and we move on? I'm just curious, to the students. I don't think the students should get their individual results. Actually, my 7th grader did get his individual results this year, and I thought that was strange. But he was glad to know. So, but I'm wondering, like, collectively as a group, right? You're talking about collective efficacy is really important in how a team functions, and the opportunity when your kids are doing well in your school, collectively as a group, right? The opportunity to teach that growth mindset. right, and create that unity. Do we do anything with that? Because this data would support that we could and potentially should.
Student efficacy also has a very high effect size for learning. I don't think it's not as high, but it's like a 1.27. And just for people that don't know effect size, John Hattie did a meta-analysis over like 80,000 different pieces of research, and he identified a statistical measure that he called the effect size. And he identified 0.4 as the hinge point. So if you're above 0.4, then that practice, which he studied from 80,000 other studies that have studied those practices, if you're above 0.4, it's worth your time to do it, essentially, is the notion with the kids. So student efficacy matters too. At Greenwood, we haven't done a lot with the students related to their one time of year, 1 week out of the year forward exam scores.
Sure.
We spend more time talking to our kids about put forth your best effort, but you don't have to freak out about it, kids, because to be honest, some of them will. It's the first time that they've been given this kind of assessment as an 8-year-old, as a 9-year-old, as a 10-year-old, as an 11-year-old. So we just want them to do the very best that they can and let the chips fall where they may. And our teachers too, we're teaching to the standards that find themselves on the test, but not for the purpose of the test. So when we talk to our kids about their growth, it's more about the growth that they make from the beginning of the year to the end of the first trimester, to the end of the second trimester, on specific standards and benchmarks that we want for them, not on this one time of year snapshot.
Sure, the day-to-day, the progress that they're making. Yeah, that makes total sense. Thank you. Good answer, Nate. I knew you'd have one.
Thank you. Have another snack.
Any other questions or comments of Jamie?
Thanks.
Yep, thank you. All right, I don't think there are any other administrative reports. So we are going to move on to action items. At this point, we have April 17th, regular Board of Education meeting minutes. We have April 24th, board reorganizational meeting minutes. We have bills that have been submitted for payment. We also have employment recommendations. So do we have a motion to approve minutes, bills, and employment as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Cindy. Is there a second? Thank you, Mike. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Alan, I will turn to you for the Educational Program Committee update, please, and the recommendations.
Okay, we have 3 items to act on, but I think one of the bigger items, this was a very good meeting, very thorough meeting. We spent quite a bit of time. In fact, it occurred to me when we were having the discussions about the curriculum review cycle here that this is one of the reasons why we set committee meetings off from the regular meeting, so we can spend so much time. I mean, our Ed Programs meeting lasted over 2 hours, and when you add that to the other meetings on top of a regular board meeting, our meetings would be running until after midnight if we didn't do separate committee meetings. So this gave us a chance to really focus on this particular item, which has been on our radar for quite some time. The review cycle, how does new curriculum get approved? How does new curriculum get reviewed? When does it get reviewed and when does it come up? And there's been something of a cycle in the past. We've all known that we need to have this a little bit more organized, and that was one of the things that Amy Weiss and Mary Beth Elliott in their interim capacity really took on this year and are developing a process for us so that we know which areas are going to come up, how's the review cycle going to happen. Each review cycle will happen in this way. These people will have input. When is it announced? When are the decisions made? How are the decisions made? So I thought that was a really good conversation we had with them. It was very informative for us as board members, I thought, and gave us a chance to give them some input about how we want to engage the teachers, the parents, the administrators, everybody in the review cycles and how this stuff gets approved. So is that a fair assumption on how that went? Anybody else have anything else about that? So anyway, how we do our curriculum and how it gets reviewed. We'll have that was a preliminary report. We'll have the official curriculum coming up, our calendar coming up and schedule and how that'll happen coming up. There are 3 items here to act on. Basically, and this comes up every so often, this question about when can my son or daughter enroll in school in the upcoming year when their birthday is right on the edge of our cutoff date. There's got to be some kind of a cutoff date for kindergarten or preschool or whatever. And so we set a date. But the accident of birth, if the date is September 1 or October 1, and for some reason you go into labor the night before and it's before the 1st, does that mean your kid can't start kindergarten, whatever? So there's this, and some kids are just ready. They're ready on October 1st, and some kids may not be ready on August 1st. Every student's a little bit different. So we need to have some flexibility in the process. So what came forward from us is we've had this in the past with kindergarten. We've got it now with 4-year-old kindergarten, same sort of thing. When is a kid 4 years old? Kindergarten is when is a kid 5 years old and ready for school. And then there were some wording changes, some editing changes, and the form was a paper form for parents to fill out to appeal the decision and give more information. And Mary Beth and Amy really thought this should be an online form that can expand and provide more opportunity for parents to talk about their kid. Are they ready or are they not ready, and that sort of thing. So I think this was fairly straightforward, but it was a good discussion about entrance dates again. So there are 3 action items. They're all related to this same process. So I would move that we approve the first reading of revised school board policies 421, entrance age 421, the rule, and 421, the exhibit, which was the form that we were given.
Thank you, Ellen and Lindsay. Any questions or comments?
The edits they made, the wording changes are excellent.
Okay, good.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. Mike, for a report on finance and facilities, please.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute, we did one other thing. Oh, we had a summer school update on that meeting as well. Sorry, Mike. But, and summer school is going along. I think they're very well organized. Summer school is back up and running full speed post-COVID. We've had it the last couple of years, but really enrollment looked like it was going to be up and in place. One of the biggest challenges is just finding teachers who will teach, especially some of the special interest topics, and we're always interested in that because we have the ability to expand summer school even more than what it is now.
Okay. So we had a couple of informational only items on our agenda, and then a couple that we need to make a motion on. So first of all, we reviewed the initial facility study report. We had visitors from LHB, our architects that we've chosen for our project, and Kraus Anderson there to talk about the list of things from a facility standpoint. So I would defer to Jamie or to Lynette if you have any.
Just a background for others, that we're doing a full facility assessment, and that report will be hundreds of line items long, and so the board has seated a project oversight committee, an ad hoc committee that will go through the process of sifting through these many different line items, and in the process, kind of narrow things down. Simultaneously, we're anxious to know what the state legislature is going to do with state funding in this next biennial cycle, 2023 through 25. They're in the process of subcommittee work down in Madison related to some of those big decisions that we're anxious to learn how our local district will be impacted by school funding at the state level. And that's relevant to this facility assessment because at the end of the day, the two will come together, the facility assessment and the school finance picture, to determine what will the details be for a February of 24 referendum. And so Mike's alluding to really kind of half of that equation right now with the facility assessment. And we heard the update from the architect and contractor regarding their process and what that'll look like for the project oversight committee, POC, and kind of setting the stage. We have an upcoming meeting where we'll start that process now and stay true to that a couple times every month until we get things narrowed down.
And they're doing quite a job of documenting all of the issues that they see with pictures and verbiage and maps and.
I think, sorry, I'm saying a lot tonight, but I think this is one more. The other day, you had one of your coffee with the superintendent meetings in the morning, and it was really well attended. There was really a good group there. It's a great conversation going on, and there was a lot of conversation around this. And one of the things people were asking, but we made clear then, and I think maybe make clear, remind us all again, this isn't just something we've come up with. We think that we ought to be doing some of this stuff, or we've walked through the building and think that some of the ceilings or rooms should be taken care of. We have a construction management firm, engineers and architects going through all of our buildings with detailed, and these guys have expertise. They have very detailed expertise. It's what we're paying them for, so that this stuff is not just going to be whimsical that we're putting out there for people to consider whether or not they want to support or not in a referendum. There will really be a lot of data and engineering background behind it, and I think that's important for people to be reminded of. So.
And I think another important thing is these, a lot of these things aren't new. They were identified in past referendum items that just didn't fit within the budget for our past referendum. So as we're looking at this, and we just did a referendum 6 years ago, a lot of the things that we're looking at are things that were identified then that needed to be addressed that we couldn't do from a budgetary standpoint for that referendum. So I think that's important for people to understand too. The next thing is we just took a look at our 22-23 budget update from our new Director of Finance and Facilities, Lynette. So do you have anything you want to point out? We have
Budget update?
right.
We're on. I don't really have anything to update or comment on, but that is available not only in our Finance and Facilities Committee meeting documents, but also in the board meetings. So those updates will continue to be in both meetings for the public.
Great, thank you. And I think it's helpful to have a new set of eyes on it this year. You kind of bring a different background in budgeting and bring in some new tools to the table for us. So we appreciate all the work you're doing and kind of stepping in halfway through the year and trying to figure out what's been going on so far, and then also planning for next year and beyond. So great work, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
So we have two items. First, we need to review and approve the first reading of the new investment income policy, would be policy 652. We reviewed that. It's a new policy that we haven't had in the past. So basically, it identifies for us 4 things that we're looking for when the district brings in money. A few times a year brings in large sums of money that we pay our bills and so on with. So we have a lot of cash sitting there, and we need to know what to do with it and where it should go and how we should handle that cash. So there were 4 things that were identified as important for our investment income for those funds. And one is safety. We want to make sure that we hold on to the principal and that we're being very safe with the money. Liquidity, we need to have access to the cash, and so we can pay our bills when we need them or pay for things that as they come up. We would like to look for return on investment. So we do invest money into income generating type accounts that we could earn a little interest on our money. And then we also think it's important that it's aligned with our district values, so that the investment portfolio should be aligned with our values and those kinds of things. So this is new to the district this year. So this is one of the things Lynette has brought to us. So what do you have to say about it, Lynette?
You kind of covered it. It's at first glance, it's a pretty vague policy, but it does set the stage for what someone like me, a position like me, would come in and look at. You know, where are investments? Where's our money? Does it align with our policy? And so when I realized we didn't have one, we had those discussions, and we were doing the things. We were setting up and making sure our investments were safe. We were looking at the return on investment and all of those things, even without the policy. But this just sort of sets that up for any future board members, and any future directors of finance. So, and it allows for some flexibility and discussion as well. So it doesn't lock us into specifically putting things here or there, or
in any certain way, so it allows for that as well.
Thank you. All right, so I will make a motion to approve the first reading of the new investment income policy 652.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Allison. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried.
Okay, so our last action item for the evening of our Facilities and Finance Committee meeting, we had reviewed a recommendation from Lynette to district membership into a WERMC, W-E-R-M-C, the Wisconsin Educators Risk Management Cooperative. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about WERMC.
Right, so it is a cooperative of currently about 66 districts around the state. And I first became aware of WERMC about 6 or 7 years ago when I was getting my certification in school risk management. And the organization has just grown since then. They have a consultant that oversees all of this, a board of directors. The board and all of the members are able to vote on. So they go to bid for liability insurance for the cooperating members. And then everyone gets a vote on which organization they're going to have their insurance with. And so although you're with the same company, you can also pick and choose kind of your limits. So you start with the basic, and if you want to go up from there, districts have that capability. The idea is that the pricing is going to be much better than we can get as individuals. And with having a board, the coverage and the oversight is going to be really good as well. Besides us having a broker, and our broker is on the list of WERMC approved, they're vetted, and we were already with that broker. So now we'll also get that pricing, the cooperative pricing through them. And we also have an opportunity for a discount through some of the action items that we'll do as a district and as a finance team. So they really have a proactive approach rather than reactive. So coming in and looking at things, I'll have a lot of contacts and resources for looking at safety and risk management, things that are happening around the district as well. So everyone I've talked to, all the districts I've talked to that are participating have had a really positive experience with them, and they've seen savings in their insurance premiums. So.
Great, thank you. Opportunity for us to maybe save some money. So I would make a motion to approve a district membership with the Wisconsin Educators Risk Management Cooperative.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Bob. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. All right, we're going to turn to an update on the Personnel Committee. There was one discussion item, and then we had 5 action items. So I'm going to go through them in that order. The first thing that was an information item was an update about certified staffing. So this is the time of the year when we have resignations and transfers and retirements, and we are in recruiting mode and hiring mode. And so Dave gave us an update of where we are in all of those searches. Do you want to add anything to that, Dave? No? Okay, so that was an information item only. We also went on and we reviewed a job description for a new position, which is the student support teacher at the high school. This is a new position, as I said, that is designed to support teachers and students. We're eager to do this. It'll be, in some sense, a pilot because we're just trying it out. So at this moment, do we have a motion to approve the new support teacher job description for the high school?
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Cindy. Any further questions or comments about this? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. One of the things that we do on a recurring basis is to review job descriptions. And so now, as our middle school counseling office secretary has retired, it was a good opportunity to be able to review what she does. We just wanted to make sure that what she actually does during the day is reflected in the verbiage of the job description. And so there were a few adjustments, especially because this position is not a typical secretary position like some of the others we have in the district. And so you'll see in the packet the adjustments that we've made. So at this point, I will move to accept the middle school counseling office secretary job description. Is there a second? Thank you, Lindsay. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. We also went through the 2024-25 academic calendar. We like to be able to get this out ahead of time so that families are able to make plans. So it shows the beginning of the school year, the end of the school year, and some vacation days. There will be important dates that we call like parent-teacher conferences and so forth that we will schedule at a later time as the year draws closer. But at this point, do we have a motion to approve the 2024-25 school calendar? Thank you, Bob. Is there a second? Thank you, Allison. Questions or comments? One thing you'll notice is there is no school on election day. That was by design. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. One of our responsibilities is to issue letters of appointment to our support staff on a yearly basis because they have a one-year contract. And so we send out letters to all of our folks telling them what their position will be. Yes, and then also what their salary will be for next year. And so we are in a position now to be able to do that for our support staff employees. Is there a motion to approve sending these letters of appointment? Thank you, Lindsay. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. Questions or comments?
Just point out that it doesn't include any group that we are negotiating or collectively bargaining with. So our bus driver group isn't included in that, and the teacher group isn't considered a support staff group. So
These are just the support, not certified staff or bus drivers. Yep. Anything else? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. And we also need to approve the hourly support staff salary schedule, which is in conjunction with what we just did on the letters of appointment. So is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. So at this point, I'll take any proposed items for future board meeting agendas. There are two that I want to point out. First of all, there will be a number of policies that are going to come before the board in the summer months that we were going to be looking at for revision, so just to keep everybody aware of that. The second thing is that on the June, for the June meeting, we are going to go and have our annual superintendent evaluation meeting. So, we've gone around and about, and the best tool to be able to use for this, Jamie and I have been in conversation about this, and this year we're not going to ask you to do something ahead of time. We have a process that we're going to go through once we get into the meeting. So those are two things that are coming up, but are there any other issues a board member would like to place on an agenda?
Stacy, I think it probably will come as the committee's report, but we probably will want to start getting regular updates on the facilities and where we're headed with decisions about that, so.
For the POC, Project Oversight Committee updates.
I can't remember the name, but yeah.
I would imagine, Mike, that you could add that to your conversations. We'll make sure to do that. Thank you. Anything else? All right, then we need to schedule meetings. So there will be a Finance and Facility Committee meeting on Monday, June 5th at 6 o'clock. The Personnel Committee will meet Monday, June 5th at 7 o'clock or immediately following Finance and Facilities. The Educational Program Committee will meet Monday, June 12th at 6. And the next regular board meeting will be Monday, June 19th at 6 o'clock. All of those meetings will take place here in this room. And at this point, I would like to have a motion to move into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985 1A, C, and F to discuss negotiations with employee groups and to discuss student expulsion procedures. Thank you, Lindsay. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Bob. I'll need a roll call. Allison? Lindsay? Bob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Alan? Yes. I'm saying yes. Cindy? All right. Thank you, everyone. Please take some of those treats with you.